everybody, welcome back to the channel. Working on this series where we're talking about this Hornady Apex. If you've got one, I can't find a whole lot of videos for it online unless you get the DVD for it. So I figured I'd start a series kind of talking about how do we put it together, how do we make sure that we're safe. And so in this video we're going to talk about the primer tube, the primer protection tube, the actual primer feeder, and all of the other little pieces that kind of go along with that. And so the thing comes with a couple of tools. One is a small primer tube like this, and this is how you pick up your primers. You can see that there's like a little plastic thing on that end, and there's a cotter pin on this end. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. And then if you happen to get all of your primers in there and you realize something's messed up or there's one stuck in the end, it actually has a little deal like that, if you pull the cotter pin, that you can actually push the primers back out the other end if you need to. Right? And so let's say you get them upside down or something like that and you realize, oops, I've messed up. This is how you get them back out of there, is a little white tube. And so we'll put our little cotter pin back in here. And we don't lose it because they're easy to misplace. And we'll kind of move forward just a little bit here. So for me, this was kind of confusing. Right here, there's an assembly that as I go backwards, I'm sure you can kind of see this little roller right there. It moves on that arm. And what that does is it pulls a little plate further back and lets a primer drop into that plate underneath that. And then whenever you go back down, there's actually a plunger over here, and I'll move the camera so that way you can see that, but there's a plunger inside there that allows for the primer to push up into the pocket. Okay, so this is just kind of looking down into station number 2, and so when I pull that lever, you can see that the whole thing rotates, and then whenever it comes back, I can go down like that, and you see that little plunger that comes up? There'll be a primer sitting right on top of that, and that primer sitting right on top of that is actually how you prime the case. So in neutral, basically, with your lever, back this out just a little bit. So in neutral with your lever, right, so there's neutral, there's a little bit of room where you can push forward. And when you push forward, that allows for that case to go down over the top of that primer, and it pushes it into the case. So let's see if I can show you that again. See how that sticks out just a little bit past? And so if I rotate, it does like that. And so if I take it like this and zoom all the way out, you'll be able to see the whole assembly rises and goes down. And so the intent would be that every time a new primer would fall in the assembly that we're about to put together, you can actually push it into the primer pocket. Alright, so to kind of continue on with the priming system here, which is probably one of the more complicated parts, we're going to have to put the safety shroud, which is this right here, on top of that. And it's just threaded in the bottom, goes right over the top of that, and it threads right down inside. And so as it threads down, when you get to the bottom, it doesn't have to be crazy tight, you just snug it up. And so then it comes with 2 of these primer tubes. There's one big and one small. All right, so let me make sure that y'all can see this. Way down here at the very end, there's a little bit of a taper, like a little shoulder that's right there on the bottom of that. The other side does not have that, right? And so we want that tapered side, zoom out here just a little bit, we want that tapered side to go down inside, and if it hits the edge, it's going to stick up out of there a pretty good ways. And so if I try to put my safety cover over the top, you notice it sticks out of the top of the safety cover. We don't want that. So you're going to feel around just a little bit. Once you feel around, of course this would be the time that I'll struggle with this. There it goes. It drops down inside there. And then you can take your little plastic grommet over the top. And if you notice, it sits pretty flush. There's none of that rod sticking out of the top. And that's exactly how you want it. And so if the intent would be if the primers blow up inside this tube, this shroud actually protects you from that thing blowing up in your face. And so this little plastic thing is just kind of to keep it centered. You know what I'm saying? That way it's not wonky on the inside of there or anything. And so the next step is that we need to get some primers together and get the primers down inside that. All right, so never mind the mess that's on the bench here. It's kind of my workspace. Every once in a while I get a cat in the area or something like that that wants to sit up on my bench. Anyway, I do my best not to let that happen, but it does. So the next step is you're going to need one of these little fancy tools. Hornady makes these. It's got some ribs on it. I don't know if you can see the ribs that are on that. Should be able to hear that. And it's got a smooth cap. And so what I like to do is I take my primers. They're small pistol primers since we're doing 9mm. And I like to take my primers and see if I can do this without making a ginormous mess. Slide the little cover off of it. You know what I'm saying? Take this, the rib part, and face it over the top of it. And you can see through that I've got it flush on that thing. All right. And so if I flip it over and I grab that, most of them are already facing the right way. But as you shake this, it automatically flips them over and puts them in the right direction because that's the side that you want up. So then you take the little tool, the one I was telling you about that has the cotter pin on it and the little plastic thing on the bottom side. You want to hold this thing pretty firm. You know what, I'm doing this wrong. Yeah, because once that's like that, you put the lid on it, flip them over. That's the side that you want up. You want the shiny side up. If you put the anvil side up, it'll put all your primers in backwards, so don't make that mistake. That's a bad move. But once you have them like this, and the right side is up, then we're just going to take this little tool. Hopefully you can see all of this. See if I can zoom in just a little bit. Move this. Just like that. And so I'm going to take this little tool, I'm going to push over the top, and I think I got the wrong one. Let me grab the right one here. I have the wrong one, so that was for large primers. Don't make that mistake too. Same thing though, it's got a little plastic thing, little cotter pin on the other end, and then we're just going to take and push down over the top of those, and we're going to start picking those up. And I'm not going to bore you with trying to pick all these things up. But that's basically what you do until your whole thing is full. These have about 100 primers in them. In fact, I think it is exactly 100. I don't know what to do with these things, man. I don't like throwing stuff away that I don't have to, and if I can find another purpose for it, I will. So if y'all have any ideas about what to do with these, that would be awesome. If you can just put it in the comments and let me know what you do with them. I've thought about beads for the wife, you know, doing bead making necklaces, that kind of stuff like that, but boy, it sure is awful small. And I'm not quite sure what else to do with it. So if you guys got any ideas, I'd love to know. And so let me get that primer tube filled up, and I'll come back and we'll talk about how to load the actual automatic priming system on this press here. So, but again, I usually take these things and slide it back inside there, and then they hang out in the shop for ages. I should probably just throw them away and quit being anal about it, but if you got any ideas, let me know. Alright, so I've got that primer tube filled up. It's completely full. You can get a little over 100 of them in there, 110. And then there's one still right there in the mouth of that. So the idea would be, you want to take that right over the top and sit it. There's like a little tiny groove right there, and you're going to sit it inside that, and we're going to pull that cotter pin. I'm sure you could hear that, all the primers falling down inside that tube. And so now that is ready to go. So station number 2 has primers in it, and from this point on, every time that we put a case on it that needs a primer, it's going to take that primer and put it into the bottom of the case as long as we push it forward. And so let me move the camera again. I'll show you what it looks like whenever it puts a primer into that slot. Alright, so we've got it set up now. You're not going to see it on the upstroke, but anyway, that little thing drives backwards, and as it comes back forward, you notice there's a primer sitting on top of that, and it's anvil up, which is the direction that we want it. So we know our priming system is working, so that's good. The next step is we need to set up a flaring die, and so I guess that calls it for the end of today. The flaring die is going to be super fast, so we'll probably cover the flaring die and maybe even some reloading data and how to look that stuff up in the next episode. So thanks for watching. Like I said, I hope you find it interesting. Quite a bit to learn here as far as this goes, and this press in particular. So there it is, the Hornady AP, and we're going to continue on trying to get it set up and make some bullets.